At exactly 3:17 a.m., every satellite above the Pacific Ocean went dark. No explosion. No warning. Just silence. Inside the North American Aerospace Defense Command bunker beneath Cheyenne Mountain Complex, alarms screamed across every monitor at once. Satellite telemetry lost. GPS blackout spreading west to east. Military relays offline. Operators shouted over each other while giant screens flickered with static. For 3 full minutes, nobody understood what they were seeing. Then the first city vanished. A live traffic camera overlooking downtown San Diego showed empty highways glistening beneath streetlights. Cars moved normally through intersections. A homeless man pushed a shopping cart along the sidewalk. Then the sky split open. Black clouds spiraled downward in complete silence. Not storm clouds. Something darker. Something alive. Every car on the highway stopped at once. Streetlights burst. And from inside the swirling darkness, something emerged. Wings. Enormous wings. A shape bigger than a passenger jet descended slowly through the clouds. The camera struggled to focus as heat distorted the air around it. Then 2 golden eyes opened. The live stream lasted 14 more seconds. People around the world later watched those seconds frame by frame. The creature inhaled once. Green fire flooded the city. Buildings melted. Concrete flowed like water. The screen went white. Static. By sunrise, the footage had reached every phone on Earth. Humanity finally agreed on one thing. Dragons were real. And they had come to Earth. Panic spread faster than the attacks themselves. News stations stopped pretending it was terrorism after the second city disappeared. Then the third. Then the 7th. A dragon above Shanghai destroyed an entire naval fleet in less than 6 minutes. Another creature tore through military aircraft over Moscow without slowing down once. Missiles hit them. Jets fired on them. Nothing worked. The creatures moved impossibly fast for their size. They dodged supersonic weapons like birds avoiding rain. They were intelligent. A pilot over the Atlantic managed to record one before his fighter vanished from radar. The dragon turned its massive head directly toward the cockpit camera. And smiled. Not an animal's expression. A person's. The transmission cut immediately afterward. By noon, governments across the world declared global emergencies. Airspace shut down internationally. Financial markets crashed. Millions tried fleeing major cities at once. Highways became graveyards of abandoned vehicles. Social media exploded with theories. Demons. Aliens. God's judgment. Ancient experiments. Nobody knew the truth. Except one man. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, 1,200 feet underground, Dr. Elias Mercer stared silently at a frozen monitor. The room around him hummed with ancient machinery. Dust-coated unused computers. Half the bunker lights no longer worked. Officially, Mercer had died 11 years earlier from heart failure. Officially, this bunker didn't exist. But both were lies. Mercer barely noticed the coffee shaking in his trembling hand as footage replayed on the screen again and again. A dragon flying above the burning ruins of Tokyo. Most people saw fire. Mercer saw symbols. Burned into the creature's black scales were glowing markings that twisted like living geometry. He recognized every one of them. Because he had seen them before. Not on Earth. In 1987. Mercer slowly opened a locked drawer beside the console and removed a photograph so old the edges had turned yellow. A team of scientists standing beneath Antarctic ice. Behind them sat a massive black structure covered in the exact same symbols now glowing across dragon scales worldwide. Mercer whispered one sentence. "No, you found us." A young soldier standing guard near the bunker entrance frowned. "Sir." Mercer ignored him. His breathing quickened as memories he had buried for decades clawed their way back into his mind. The ice. The chamber. The boy. Dear God. The boy. Suddenly every screen in the bunker flickered violently. Static flooded the monitors. Then a deep sound rolled through the underground facility. Thud. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The guards reached for their rifles instantly. Another thud shook the floor harder this time. Closer. Mercer slowly stood. "No," he whispered. The bunker commander entered the room. What the hell was that? Nobody answered. Then came the third impact. Boom. The blast rattled steel walls throughout the facility. Warning lights flashed red as distant screams echoed through underground corridors. One of the security feeds suddenly activated. The camera showed the surface entrance above the bunker. Or what remained of it. A massive claw wrapped around a destroyed watchtower before crushing it like paper. Soldiers fired upward helplessly. The thing outside barely noticed. The guards in the bunker froze in terror. Because the creature on the monitor was too large to be real. Black scales. Golden eyes. Smoke curling from its jaws. And wings so huge they covered half the desert sky. The dragon lowered its head toward the bunker entrance. Then, impossibly, it knocked. 3 slow impacts echoed through the underground base. Boom. 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 The lights died instantly afterward. Darkness swallowed the bunker. Several soldiers panicked, shouting into radios that no longer worked. Only the emergency backup lights remained, bathing the corridors in dim red. Then every speaker in the facility crackled alive at once. A voice emerged. Deep. Ancient. Cold enough to stop hearts. We know the star blood survives below. Mercer went completely pale. The commander looked toward him immediately. What does that mean? Mercer didn't answer. Because only one human being on Earth knew the meaning of the words starblood. Him. And the dragons had just found him. Suddenly the outer blast doors screamed under immense pressure. Metal bent inward. Soldiers raised rifles. The commander shouted orders. Mercer stared at the shaking walls with absolute horror. Because he finally understood something humanity did not. The dragons were not invading Earth. They were searching for someone. And if they found him first, humanity would not survive what came next. The outer blast door lasted 11 seconds. That was all. Inside the Nevada bunker, soldiers braced behind overturned steel tables as the reinforced entrance groaned under impossible force. 30 tons of titanium alloy bent inward like soft plastic. Warning sirens screamed through the corridors. Hold positions. Target at the breach. Fire on command. Dr. Elias Mercer stood frozen near the central console, unable to pull his eyes away from the shaking door. Every impact sent memories crashing back into his mind. Antarctica. The chamber beneath the ice. He had spent nearly 40 years convincing himself it was buried forever. Then the door exploded inward. Molten metal sprayed across the bunker corridor as a massive claw punched through the center of the blast door. Soldiers opened fire instantly. Rifles thundered. Armor-piercing rounds slammed into black scales. And bounced harmlessly away. The creature stepped through the burning wreckage slowly, ducking beneath twisted steel beams. It was even larger than the dragons from the broadcasts, nearly 30 feet tall at the shoulder, covered in scarred obsidian scales that shimmered under emergency lights. But what terrified Mercer most wasn't its size. It was the armor. Ancient black metal covered the dragon's chest and neck, etched with glowing blue symbols Mercer recognized instantly from the Antarctic ruins. The same language. The same civilization. The dragon's golden eyes scanned the room once. Then locked directly onto Mercer. Everything else became irrelevant. Found you. The words never passed through its jaws. They echoed directly inside every human mind in the bunker. Several soldiers screamed and dropped their weapons. One collapsed to his knees clutching his head as blood trickled from his ears. The commander forced himself to aim anyway. Open fire. Machine guns erupted again. The dragon ignored every bullet. It continued walking toward Mercer with calm, deliberate steps that shook the floor beneath its claws. Mercer stumbled backward. You shouldn't be here yet. The dragon tilted its massive head slightly. Yet. Smoke curled from between its teeth. Then, slowly, it smiled. Mercer felt genuine terror grip his chest for the first time in decades. Because predators smiled before killing. The commander grabbed Mercer violently by the arm. Who the hell are these things? Mercer's voice barely worked. You don't understand. Another explosion interrupted him. The ceiling above the bunker corridor collapsed inward as gigantic claws tore through concrete from above. Dust flooded the air. Soldiers shouted in panic as another dragon began digging directly into the facility. Then another impact hit from the eastern wall. And another. They weren't attacking randomly. They were searching. The armored dragon stopped 10 feet from Mercer. Its glowing eyes narrowed. You told them nothing. Mercer remained silent. That silence answered everything. The dragon inhaled slowly, smoke rising from its nostrils. After all these years, you still protect the lie. The commander turned toward Mercer in disbelief. What lie? Mercer closed his eyes. For 40 years he had carried the weight of one terrible decision. 40 years of secrets, buried reports, falsified deaths, and hidden facilities. And now the truth had arrived at humanity's doorstep with claws and fire. We found something in Antarctica, Mercer whispered. The bunker fell silent except for distant explosions above them. In 1987, a research team discovered an object buried 6 miles beneath the ice. The commander stared at him. What kind of object? Mercer swallowed hard. A prison. The armored dragon's eyes never left him. Mercer continued speaking anyway, almost like confession. It wasn't human technology. The structure was older than recorded civilization. Covered in symbols no one could translate. He pointed weakly toward the dragon's armor. Those symbols. The commander's face drained of color. You're saying these creatures were inside it? No, Mercer whispered. Something crashed through another section of the bunker above them. Dust rained from the ceiling. Mercer's breathing became uneven. There was only one prisoner. The dragon suddenly took another step closer. Speak carefully, human. Mercer ignored the warning. When we opened the chamber, we found a child. Silence. Even the distant destruction outside seemed to pause. The commander frowned. A child? Mercer nodded slowly. A boy. Around 12 years old. Silver eyes. Human in appearance. His voice trembled. At least, we thought he was human. One of the surviving soldiers laughed nervously. That's impossible. Mercer looked at him coldly. You've seen dragons burn cities today. Stop using the word impossible. The armored dragon lowered its head slightly. What happened to him? Mercer hesitated too long. The dragon's expression darkened instantly. Heat rolled off its scales. What happened? The psychic roar slammed through the bunker hard enough to crack computer screens. Soldiers cried out in pain. Mercer forced himself to answer. He escaped. The dragon froze. Mercer continued quickly. Before the chamber collapsed, the boy disappeared into the storm above the ice. We searched for years. We never found him. The commander stared between Mercer and the dragon in horror. You're telling me the entire world is ending because of one missing child? Mercer looked toward the armored beast. The dragon answered first. Not a child. Its golden eyes burned brighter. A king. At that exact moment, every screen in the bunker suddenly activated at once. Static flickered across dozens of monitors. Then a single image appeared simultaneously on every display. Security footage. A teenage boy walking through the snowy ruins of a burning town somewhere in northern Canada. Dark hoodie. Silver eyes. Alive. The dragon inhaled sharply. Mercer's blood turned to ice. Because after 39 years, the lost child had finally been found. The cold was beyond human understanding. Even inside the reinforced drilling station buried beneath Antarctic ice, scientists wore heated suits just to survive. Frost crept across steel walls. Every breath became white mist. Dr. Elias Mercer remembered all of it perfectly. The fear. The excitement. And the moment humanity made the worst mistake in its history. The discovery had begun as a seismic anomaly nearly 6 miles below the ice shelf. At first, researchers believed they had found a meteorite. Then scanners revealed smooth geometric walls beneath the glacier. Artificial walls. Impossible walls. Within weeks, military personnel arrived and sealed the site under classified authority. Mercer, only 24 years old at the time, was recruited because of his expertise in ancient symbolic systems. He still remembered the first time he saw the structure. A black monolith larger than a football stadium buried inside the ice. No visible entrances. No seams. And covering every inch of its surface were glowing silver markings unlike any language humanity had ever seen. The same symbols now burned across dragon scales around the world. Back then, Mercer had felt wonder. Now he only felt guilt. We shouldn't continue, one scientist warned during the excavation. Nobody listened. Human curiosity had always mistaken itself for courage. The military cut through the outer layer using thermal drills. The moment the first section opened, every electronic system inside the station failed simultaneously. Lights died. Radio screamed with static. Then came the sound. A heartbeat. Slow. Massive. Alive. Several soldiers wanted to retreat immediately. The commanding officer refused. Orders came down from above. Proceed. Mercer and the others entered the chamber 2 hours later. The inside of the structure was impossibly warm compared to the frozen wasteland outside. Smooth black walls curved upward beyond visible range, covered in pulsing silver symbols that shifted whenever no one looked directly at them. At the center of the chamber sat a throne-like platform. And on it, a child. The boy looked no older than 12. Barefoot. Thin. silver eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. He looked at the humans entering the chamber without surprise. Without fear. Like he had been expecting them. One soldier immediately raised his weapon. "Don't move." The boy tilted his head slightly. Then, in perfect English, he spoke. "You should not have opened this." Mercer remembered the silence afterward more vividly than the words themselves. Nobody understood how the child could speak English. Or survive beneath Antarctic ice. Or why his eyes reflected light like molten silver. The commander stepped forward carefully. "Who are you?" The boy looked past him toward the opening in the chamber wall. And for the first time, fear appeared on his face. Not fear for himself. For them. "They'll hear me now." Then the alarms began. Every sensor in the station activated simultaneously. Motion detectors. Thermal scanners. Seismic monitors. Something enormous was moving beneath the ice. Fast. The entire facility shook violently. Snow exploded from the ceiling as distant roars echoed through miles of frozen tunnels. One scientist started crying immediately. Mercer never forgot the sound of those roars. Ancient. Hungry. Furious. The military panicked. Soldiers dragged the boy from the throne while commanders screamed into broken radios for evacuation procedures. The child struggled for the first time. "You don't understand," he shouted. "You must close the chamber." Nobody listened. Humanity never listened until it was too late. Another impact shook the station. This time the floor cracked. A massive claw punched through the ice wall near the chamber entrance. Men screamed as freezing water flooded into the corridor. Mercer saw it only for a second. A golden eye staring through the collapsing ice. Watching. Searching. The soldiers opened fire instantly. The bullets did nothing. Chaos erupted. Scientists fled in every direction. Emergency lights flashed red across the station. Somewhere deeper in the tunnels, people were dying. And in the middle of it all, the silver-eyed boy looked directly at Mercer. "If they find me," he whispered, "your world ends." Then the station collapsed. Mercer barely survived. The official report blamed a drilling accident. Every surviving witness was forced into permanent silence under military orders. The chamber was sealed. The truth buried beneath Antarctic ice forever. Or so Mercer believed. Present day. The Nevada bunker trembled around him as dragons continued tearing through the underground facility. Mercer stared at the security footage on the monitor. The teenage boy walking through snowy Canadian ruins. Silver eyes. Alive. Older now, but unmistakably the same child from Antarctica. The armored dragon stood motionless beside the screens. For the first time since entering the bunker. It looked afraid. "The air lives." Mercer turned slowly toward the creature. "Eh?" The dragon ignored him. Outside, dozens of distant roars suddenly echoed across the desert. More dragons were arriving. The bunker commander stepped backward from the monitors in disbelief. "This whole invasion, all of this is because you're looking for that kid." The armored dragon's golden eyes narrowed. "You still understand nothing, human." Another violent impact shook the bunker. Concrete cracked overhead. Then every dragon outside suddenly went silent. Completely silent. Mercer felt his stomach drop instantly. Something worse had arrived. A shadow passed across the emergency lights near the destroyed entrance tunnel. Huge. Far larger than the armored dragon. Even the beast beside Mercer slowly lowered its head. Not in aggression. In submission. Then a new voice echoed through the bunker. Older than mountains. Powerful enough to vibrate through bone. "Has the Starblood been found?" The armored dragon knelt immediately. "Not yet, High Sovereign." Mercer stared toward the darkness beyond the ruined blast door. Heavy footsteps approached slowly. Each one shaking the underground facility like an earthquake. The ancient voice spoke again. "Closer now. Then find him before the humans learn what he truly is." A gigantic silhouette emerged from the smoke-filled corridor. Mercer looked into burning red eyes the size of cars. And realized humanity had not been invaded by monsters. Earth had become the battlefield of a royal civil war. Snow fell quietly over the ruins of northern Canada. The town had been dead for 3 days. Burnt-out vehicles clogged the streets. Storefront windows were shattered. Smoke drifted from collapsed buildings while distant sirens echoed somewhere beyond the mountains. And above the clouds, shadows moved. Huge shadows. Every few minutes, the sky rumbled with distant roars powerful enough to shake loose snow from rooftops. Noah Reed pulled his hood tighter and kept walking. He had learned not to look up. The first dragon attack happened 4 days earlier in nearby Vancouver. Since then, the entire country had descended into panic. Millions fled south. Military convoys vanished overnight. Entire towns lost communication without explanation. But Noah stayed. Not because he was brave. Because he had nowhere else to go. At 16 years old, Noah had spent most of his life moving between foster homes. Nobody wanted to keep him in for long. Strange things always happened around him. Lights flickered when he got angry. Electronics failed when he panicked. Animals followed him for no reason. And sometimes, when he looked in the mirror late at night, his eyes turned silver. People noticed. People always noticed. His last foster father called him cursed before throwing him out during the evacuation. Now Noah wandered through a frozen ghost town carrying a backpack full of canned food and an old hunting knife he barely knew how to use. Another roar rolled across the sky. Closer this time. Noah ducked into an abandoned grocery store and slammed the door behind him. The building was freezing cold and almost completely dark. Shelves had already been looted clean except for scattered boxes and broken glass. Noah exhaled slowly. Okay, he muttered. Food. Water. Then move. The moment he stepped deeper into the store, something strange happened. The flickering overhead lights stabilized instantly. Buzzing stopped. The entire building became unnaturally quiet. Noah froze. That always happened around him. Machines behaved differently. Like they were reacting to his presence. Then he heard breathing. Deep. Heavy. Not human. Slowly, Noah turned toward aisle 7. Golden eyes stared back at him from the darkness. His heart nearly stopped. A dragon crouched between shattered shelves. Smaller than the monsters from the news, roughly the size of a truck, but still enormous. Dark crimson scales covered its body, though several were cracked and bleeding. One wing bent horribly against the floor. It was injured. Badly. The dragon watched Noah carefully without moving. Noah stumbled backward, gripping the hunting knife with trembling hands even though he knew it was useless. The creature lowered its massive head slowly. Then, to Noah's complete shock, it bowed. Finally. The voice echoed directly inside his mind. Noah nearly dropped the knife. What are you? The dragon blinked once. Its golden eyes softened. Your guardian. Outside, thunder exploded overhead. The dragon's head snapped upward instantly. Fear flashed across its face. Real fear. They found you. Noah heard it too. A roar so massive it shook the entire town. Windows shattered instantly across nearby buildings. The wounded dragon forced itself upright despite its broken wing. You must leave. Now. No. Noah shouted. Tell me what's happening. The dragon stared at him for a long moment. Almost sadly. Your father hid you well. Noah froze completely. My father? The dragon nodded once. The last dragon king. Noah laughed nervously. That's impossible. But even as he said it, something deep inside him twisted painfully. Because part of him already knew. Dreams flooded his mind suddenly. Golden cities floating above endless clouds. Towering creatures circling crystal spires. A giant throne surrounded by fire. He had seen those places before. In nightmares. The dragon took another shaky breath. Your true name is not Noah Reed. The roof exploded inward before Noah could answer. Fire and debris blasted across the store as something colossal crashed through the ceiling. Shelves vaporized instantly. Noah hit the floor hard, covering his face against the heat. When he looked up, another dragon stood inside the burning wreckage. Black scales. Scarred armor. Golden eyes glowing like furnaces. Much larger than the wounded guardian. The newcomer stared directly at Noah. And smiled. Not kindly. Like a hunter finally cornering prey. At last, the dragon said. The wounded guardian stepped protectively in front of Noah despite trembling from its injuries. He is under royal protection. The black dragon laughed softly. A terrible sound. There are no royals left. Then its eyes narrowed toward Noah again. Only the last mistake. Noah backed away slowly as heat rolled off the creature in waves. What do you want from me? The armored dragon took one heavy step closer. Your blood. Outside, more roars echoed across the sky. The town was being surrounded. The wounded guardian lowered itself defensively. Run, it whispered urgently into Noah's mind. But Noah couldn't move. Something inside him had begun awakening. His heartbeat thundered painfully in his chest. The air around him shimmered strangely. The black dragon noticed immediately. And for the first time, Its expression changed. Not anger. Not hunger. Fear. No, the dragon whispered. Noah suddenly felt unbearable heat surge through his body. Silver light burned behind his eyes. Memories exploded into his mind. Stars. Fire. War. A man wearing golden armor standing beside dragons beneath an alien sky. Then a single sentence echoed through Noah's head in a voice older than worlds. Wake up, Caliph. The floor beneath him cracked. Every light in the store burst simultaneously. And outside, every dragon in the sky suddenly roared together. Not in rage. In recognition. The grocery store exploded outward in a wave of silver light. Windows shattered across the entire street. Snow vaporized instantly from rooftops as a shockwave tore through the ruined town. Both dragons recoiled violently. Noah collapsed to one knee, clutching his chest in agony. Something inside him was burning alive. The armored black dragon stared in horror. Impossible. The wounded guardian lowered itself protectively beside Noah despite its injuries. His awakening too early. Noah barely heard them. Voices screamed inside his head. Not one voice. Thousands. Ancient languages crashed through his mind alongside visions so massive they felt impossible for a human brain to contain. Towering cities floating above oceans of clouds. Armies of dragons darkening alien skies. Worlds burning beneath storms of blue fire. And at the center of it all, a throne made from stars. Noah gasped as another memory slammed into him. A man standing before millions of kneeling dragons. Human in appearance. Silver eyes glowing like suns. A crown of black metal resting above his brow. The dragons called him one name. Caliph. Noah. The guardian dragon's psychic voice dragged him partially back to reality. The store around him was collapsing. Flames spread across broken shelves while chunks of the roof continued falling inward. But Noah barely noticed. Because his eyes were glowing silver now. Bright enough to illuminate the smoke around him. The armored dragon took a step backward. Not attacking anymore. Afraid. The royal bloodline survived. Noah staggered upright slowly. His body felt different. Stronger. Hotter. Like something ancient had finally awakened beneath his skin. I don't understand, he whispered. The guardian dragon lowered its head respectfully. You were never human. The words hit harder than any explosion. Noah shook his head violently. No. No, that's not possible. More memories surfaced instantly. A woman with silver eyes holding him as flames consumed a palace. A massive dragon bowing before him. A war. Endless war. And betrayal. The armored dragon suddenly growled low in its throat. Enough. Fire leaked between its teeth as it stepped closer again. The heir must die before the sovereign arrives. The guardian dragon spread its damaged wings protectively. Touch him and the old laws return. The black dragon laughed bitterly. The old laws died with the throne. Then it attacked. The creature lunged across the burning store with terrifying speed, jaws wide open. Noah reacted without thinking. He raised one hand instinctively. Time stopped. Not metaphorically. Literally. The dragon froze in midair inches away from him. Flames hung motionless around the creature like suspended paint. Falling debris stopped. Even the snow outside the shattered building remained frozen in place. Silence swallowed the world. Noah stared around in terror. What did I do? A calm voice answered behind him. Something only a king can do. Noah turned sharply. A young boy stood calmly inside the frozen destruction. Barefoot. Dark clothing untouched by fire. Silver eyes identical to Noah's own. The same child from Mercer's Antarctic recordings. The boy looked around the frozen store with mild annoyance. You always were dramatic. Noah stepped backward. Who are you? The child smiled faintly. Your brother. The world snapped back into motion instantly. Sound exploded across the town again. The attacking dragon crashed violently into shelves as if struck by invisible force. It scrambled backward immediately after seeing the silver-eyed child. Then, to Noah's complete shock, the massive creature bowed. Trembling. My prince. The boy rolled his eyes. Don't call me that. Outside, every dragon above the town roared simultaneously. Not in rage. In submission. The clouds overhead began spiraling into a massive vortex. The guardian dragon lowered itself fully to the ground beside Noah. The royal line has returned. Noah stared between them in disbelief. No, stop saying that. Tell me what's happening. The silver-eyed child approached slowly. For someone who looked 12 years old, his presence felt impossibly ancient. "You were hidden on Earth after the war," he said softly. "Your father erased your memories to protect you." "My father was human," Noah argued weakly. The child shook his head. "Your father ruled worlds." Noah's breathing became uneven. None of this could be real. Dragons. Alien kingdoms. Royal bloodlines. It sounded insane. And yet, deep inside himself, he knew the child was telling the truth. The boy reached forward gently and touched Noah's forehead. Pain exploded through his skull. Every buried memory returned at once. Noah screamed. He remembered flying above golden cities on the backs of dragons. He remembered standing beside armies beneath burning stars. He remembered his father placing a black crown into his hands while war consumed the heavens. And finally, he remembered Earth. A hidden refuge at the edge of the galaxy. The last sanctuary of a dying royal bloodline. Noah collapsed to the floor breathing hard. The child knelt beside him. "Your real name," he whispered, "is Caliph." Outside, military jets screamed across the clouds overhead. Human forces had finally reached the town. Missiles locked onto every dragon signature below. Sirens echoed across emergency frequencies. The armored dragon looked skyward. Humans. The silver-eyed child stood slowly. For the first time, genuine sadness crossed his face. They still think this world belongs to them. The first missile struck seconds later. The explosion consumed half the street outside in fire. But before the shockwave reached the building, Noah raised his hand again. The flames stopped in midair. Frozen. Controlled effortlessly now. Silver fire reflected in his glowing eyes as ancient power surged through his veins, completely awake at last. Above the town, dragons across the sky lowered their heads simultaneously, bowing to him. Caliph slowly rose to his feet. And humanity's greatest nightmare finally opened its eyes.